Hello everyone and welcome back to my YouTube channel. It has been a hot minute since I uploaded a video and I have some updates and some very good reasons for those. Number one, I moved. As you can tell, I have a new backdrop. This is my library. And I will be doing a library tour and an updated bookshelf tour once I'm finished decorating it the way I want. I am a perfectionist, so you will not be seeing more than this until it's done. But yeah, I was moving, I've been busy renovating and just kind of trying to get my life back in order. So YouTube kind of fell by the wayside for a little bit. Secondly, I apologize if the lighting is a little off. I'm still trying to figure out the best lighting for filming in my library because I have a window, so I have lots of natural light, but if I don't turn the overhead light on, it's not enough light. So I'm kind of tinkering with it a little bit. So yeah. 2023 has been interesting. Lots of changes for us all, you know, the world is kind of going to crap. And reading has definitely become more and more of an escape for me. I set my Goodreads reading goal to 80 books this year, and I'm hoping that I can actually achieve that goal. I am 8 or 9 books behind schedule right now, which isn't helped by the fact that I have currently around 15 books on the go. I am a mood reader, so when a shiny new book catches my attention or I'm suddenly not feeling the book that I'm currently reading because my mood has changed, I kind of just start a new book and then the cycle just keeps repeating. So, you know, I'm sure that's not helping me reach my goal. But I figured I would use this as an opportunity to do the mid-year book check-in tag slash mid-year book freakout tag. I'm not sure what it's being called now, but it's been going around the YouTubes for ages and ages, and I am going to be doing the updated version, which was updated by Jessie the Reader. And I have all the questions on my oh, look at my stickers. I have all the questions here on my laptop, so let's just get right into it. Also, if you notice that I'm super red, I was at Pride over the weekend and I forgot sunscreen, and I burned faster than a marshmallow, so I am roasted. I am like a crispy chicken right now and it is very painful. So if you're wondering what the redness is, that's what it is. So the first question is, what is the best book that you have read so far this year? The best book that I read this year, that's really hard for me to narrow down because I've read so many great books. I finished the Malice duology by Heather Walter, and I really enjoyed the last book, Misrule. It was really good. I really loved Hijab Butch Blues by Lamia H. That was a fantastic book. I love memoirs about queer religious people. They have a special place in my heart, and I loved that book. But I think my overall absolute favorite book that I have read so far was one of my most anticipated books, and don't you love when it's your most anticipated and it also like just blows you away? Just As You Are by Camille Kellogg. This book, oh, first of all, it is a les for les romance. So both main characters are lesbians. They are also mask butch lesbians. So the love interest is very butch, and the main character is sometimes butch, sometimes not. She's kind of figuring out her gender identity, she's figuring out how she wants to present to the world, and she presents butch sometimes. So maybe not butch for butch, but like mask for butch, which is amazing because we hardly ever see good butch and gender non-conforming women in romance. I mean, most sapphic romances that are popular or in the mainstream, if we're not talking about indie books, because indie authors are amazing for butch representation, but you know, mainstream published authors, most of it is very femme for femme girlies, and we need that positive butch representation, and Just As You Are delivers that. It is a Pride and Prejudice retelling, and I didn't realize that it was a Pride and Prejudice retelling. For some reason, that very important detail escaped me. Somehow I just didn't clue in until halfway through, and I was like, wait a second. This is familiar. And so I went and I looked it up on Goodreads, and I was like, well, that makes a lot of sense. Now I feel stupid. It was an incredibly diverse, super queer, super lesbian book. The romance was just, ooh, jaw-dropping. And the ending literally had me like kicking my feet, squealing. Like, I literally was like having to put the book down and like go like this because I just couldn't handle how fucking cute it was. I loved it. I thought it was absolutely fantastic. And if you are going to read a sapphic romance, read Just As You Are, because oh my god, it was so good. And I really related to the butchness of it all. If you don't know, I am femme for butch, and my girlfriend is a very, very butch lesbian, gets mistaken for a man, and the love interest had a lot to say about existing as a butch woman in today's world. And it really came home for me because all of those experiences that I was reading on the page, I have watched my girlfriend have to deal with and experience. And so it was just really nice to see that represented on the page. And I really related to the main character, Liz, you know, not knowing whether to dress more butch or more femme. Honestly, it's never confirmed on page what Liz's gender identity is. We know that she is going through a gender journey, and she's not sure where she falls. She's not sure if she's cisgender or non-binary or genderqueer. Honestly, she gave me gender fluid vibes because all of the experiences that she was having throughout the book in relations to her gender presentation and all of that was literally me when I was figuring out that I was gender fluid. So, you know, I would say that she is gender fluid, but it's never said on page when she doesn't figure it out in the book. She's still going on that journey. But yeah, Just As You Are, Camille Kellogg, 5 out of 5 stars, 10 out of 10 stars. I fucking loved it. The second question is, what is the most disappointing book that you have read this year? And for me, that is going to have to be The Witch and the Vampire by Francesca Flores. This was one of my most anticipated books of the year, and it was tragically one of my most disappointing reads of the year. It is a sapphic retelling of Rapunzel, but the Rapunzel aspect doesn't really come into play hardly at all. It's kind of there for like the first like couple chapters of the book, and then it just kind of goes off into its own thing. I would say you could say it's Rapunzel inspired, but to say that it's a retelling is very far from the truth. Very, very far from the truth. And unfortunately for me, the plot just made no sense. I was confusion the whole time. I had no idea what was going on, and not in a good way. Like, when I read Gideon the Ninth, I had no idea what was going on, but I was having a good time. The Witch and the Vampire, however, I didn't know what was going on, and I was not having a good time. The romance was sweet, I guess, but I didn't really find myself caring about either of the main characters. And again, the plot was just so convoluted and I just didn't understand what was going on. And the ending was just, the whole thing was just a mess. And the whole book was just very disappointing for me. So I think I gave it like a 2 stars. I think I put the extra, instead of giving it 1 star, I gave it 2 because the romance was like cute, I guess. But if the romance hadn't been cute, I would have either DNF'd it or just straight up like 1 star review. The next question is, what is the best book recommendation that you have received this year? And that's kind of a hard one for me to answer because like 99% of the books that I have read this year have been advanced reader copies, not recommendations. So the only book that I really have to answer this question is Fourth Wing by Rebecca Yarros. And it wasn't even like anyone recommended this to me specifically. I was just victim to the hype, and everyone and their mother was reading it and loving it and recommending it. So I was like, I guess I'll give it a try. And you know what? It was good. I did enjoy it. I gave it 4 stars. Could it have been better? Yes. But also, the romance, the dragons. I haven't read a fantasy book with dragons like that since I read Eragon when I was like fucking 10 years old. So that part really made my little book nerd heart happy, and that is why I enjoyed it as much as I did. And I am going to continue with the rest of the series. So I can't really properly answer this question, but if I'm going to pick a book, I would say Fourth Wing by Rebecca Yarros. The next question is, what was the first DNF of the year? And I don't love DNFing books. I've gotten better at it. I have realized that my time is precious, and why would I waste that time reading books that I don't enjoy? So the first book that I DNF'd this year was Where Darkness Blooms by Andrea Hanna. And this is a queer horror novel set in a small town, and it deals with this group of characters and their mothers that go missing. And I DNF'd this book because the vibes were just not it for me. I didn't vibe with the writing. I found the writing style to be extremely dry. The plot, again, was just very convoluted. I wasn't enjoying it. I wasn't enjoying the characters. I didn't care about anything that was happening, so I DNF'd it. And I don't like DNFing advanced reader copies. But again, my time is precious, and I'm not gonna waste my time reading a book that doesn't make me happy because, you know, I'm a busy person. I work a full-time job. I also have a dog to look after and a wife to spend time with. So I'm not gonna waste time reading books I don't like. So I DNF'd Where Darkness Blooms. The next question is a new release from this year that you've read and your thoughts on it, good or bad. So for this one, again, most of the books that I have read this year have been advanced reader copies of books that are coming out this year. So I had a lot of options. And I decided to go with The Newtown Librarian by Kathy Anderson. This is a lit fic book about a lesbian librarian who is middle-aged and having a bit of a crisis, and she moves to a small town to be the official librarian of the town. And it is all about her relationships with the people around her, getting to know the people, becoming part of the town, and kind of impacting people's lives in a positive way. And I loved this book so much. It was so good. I loved the character journey. I loved her growth as a person. I loved watching her come out of her shell and really just find who she was meant to be, find romance, new friends, found family. Oh my God, this book has a wonderful found family aspect. And this was a book that I was not expecting to love. I kind of requested it on NetGalley on a whim because it sounded interesting, and I love books about librarians, and it just blew me out of the water. And I haven't seen anyone talking about it. So you like found family, you like lesbian librarians, small towns, you need to read this book. It was just, I loved it so much. I think I read it in like a day and a half. So the next question is, what is a book from the first half of the year that you really, really want to read, and what is a book from the second half of the year that you are highly anticipating? The first half of the year is definitely The Faithless. I am currently reading it. I'm about 3 chapters in. I loved The Unbroken. Oh my god, what an amazing book. So very excited to continue reading The Faithless. Again, only 3 chapters in, but absolutely loving it so far. And a book that I am really excited for in the second half of the year is Gwen and Art Are Not in Love. And I think that comes out in November. I am a sucker for all things King Arthur, Merlin. I love that stuff, and the fact that this is going to be a very queer book, sapphic and Achillean, cannot wait for it. The next question is, what is the most beautiful book that you have bought in 2023? And for me, that is going to have to be Girls Like Girls by Hayley Kiyoko. Look at that cover! And if we undress the book, it has the bike, and it is lavender. Lavender has such a historical queer significance. I love this book so much, and I just think the cover is just literally to die for. The next question is, what is the genre that you've read the most from this year? And it's kind of been all over the place. I've read a lot of romance, but I have really been working on reading more fantasy. And I've also read some thrillers. I've read really kind of everything. I've read some nonfiction. I think really romance is what I've read most from, but it's kind of weirdly split all over the place, so it's kind of hard to single one genre out. However, I do want to read mostly fantasy this year, so we will see how that goes. Next question is, do you feel like your reading tastes have changed or shifted at all this year? And quite frankly, I don't think they have. I think my main thing is that this year I am finding I am more of a mood reader than previous years. Like I said at the beginning of the video, I've got like 15 books on the go. Some of them I started at the beginning of the year. And this is not a judgment on the books themselves that I haven't finished them yet. I think it's really just me. I am ADHD autistic, and I have a really hard time focusing sometimes. I go through some periods where I can't read at all, and so the books that I'm currently reading kind of get put to the side, and then when I start reading again, I just pick up new books. That definitely contributes to it. So I think I'm just more of a scatterbrained reader than I have been than ever before. Which really isn't great. I need to work on it. Next question is, if you set any bookish goals for yourself this year, how are you doing with them? Well, to start off, like I said at the beginning, I am trying to read 80 books, and so far I just checked and I've read 30. So I'm about 8 or 9 books behind. That is doable. I can catch up. My other goals were to read more fantasy. I am a fantasy reader at heart. I love fantasy, and I have been finding that I'm reading more romance than anything else because I do a lot of advanced reader copies, and a lot of those tend to be romance, and I love romance books too. Like I'm like romance, like fantasy, and then romance is like right here. So I'm trying not to cut back on how much romance I read, because you can never read too much romance. But I'm trying to read more fantasy in addition to the romance that I'm reading, because I miss fantasy. You know, I just feel like I don't read enough of it. And so far this year, I think that I've done a fairly good job on keeping up with my fantasy reads. And for the rest of the year, I definitely have a lot of fantasy books that I need to get through. One of my other goals was to read Priory of the Orange Tree, which I have not started yet, so gotta get going on that. I also need to read the second Wheel of Time book. I already read the series, well, I read most of it. I read up to book 10 when I was a teen, and then I went through like a really bad reading slump, and I never got back into the series to finish it, so I'm kind of reading the books as the show comes out to refresh my memory. So season 2 is coming out this fall between September and October, or November, I believe, like somewhere in that time it'll be coming out. So I need to read book 2 before second season starts. So I think I will be doing a lot of fantasy reading for the rest of the year, which I am very excited about. And finally, the last question is, what is a book that you feel embodies the spirit of your reading year? And I cannot, for the life of me, answer this question because, again, as a mood reader, all the books that I read really embody my reading year, my reading tastes, you know? I could say it's a romance book. I could say it's a fantasy book, a thriller. I don't have just one book that has determined the vibe of my reading year. I just read everything, and I think that's a good thing. I think it's a good thing that I just read whatever my brain, my silly little brain, decides to read. So I don't have an answer for that question. So that was the mid-year reading check-in tag. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. Thank you so much for coming back to my channel and watching after I was on such a long hiatus. I promise it won't be that long again. I have a lot of videos. I want to do a lot more Tolkien content. I want to do a lot more book reviews and reading vlogs, and definitely a library tour / bookshelf tour will be coming in the future. I have some very cool things that I've done to the library that I can't wait to show you guys, but that will have to wait till I have actually finished it because I'm a perfectionist and I cannot show things that are half done. So thank you so much for watching, and I will see you guys in the next video.